Well, very nice day on this side of the world. Not so great if you happen to be hanging around Iran. Um, you know, when we get to these issues, it always gets very difficult because when you start to talk to people, people have opinions about whether Iran's a good guy or a bad guy. And I'm trying to make out to people, it's not about good guys or bad guys. It's about how do we go about conflict resolution? And the reality at the end of the day is that Iran, for all its flaws and faults, was at the negotiating table when Donald Trump decided to attack Iran. Now, my viewpoint is based on the fact that I'm not the President of the United States of America. I don't have all the access to all the information he has. And I'm not one of these people that just goes around hating Donald Trump because he's Donald Trump. I think that, again, I think we've fallen into this very nasty trap where we become quite partisan in our politics, where we like to look at someone, if they vote for us, and we see only the good things, and if we vote against them, we only see the bad things. Now, we all know that Donald Trump is a very controversial figure, but that said, the issue here isn't about any of these things. It's about the fact that effectively what's happening is that, New Zealand's got behind America, Australia's got behind America in pro. I think that means that the UK is, and all the Five Eyes countries are now basically saying, yep, no, we're all down with this. Now, there's two sides to this. One is that these are the same countries that made a big deal about Russia's illegal invasion in 2022. And, again, I think that there's a lot of people in the progressive liberalism that have been subject to propaganda, that they haven't really understood that this was a war begun by the neoconservatives even before 9/11, but 9/11 was the Project for New American Century, which emboldened actions that were already taking place since the bombing of Yugoslavia, which was the first expansion eastwards. However, that was all that's and done. Russia went and invaded it, and technically, yes, it is a breach of the international law. So you can't then turn around and do exactly the same thing, because then it basically means that we're living in a world where there is no international law. So all these treaties that we're all signing up to and we're all expected citizens to be expected to oblige for, is it too much to expect our governments at the top to also follow the rules? Just putting it out there. Of course, this is not the situation in Iran is not actually unrelated to the situation in Russia, because, of course, in the war game zone, it's pretty straightforward. Like, if they can knock out Iran and they can knock out North Korea, that's two of the axis of Allah, the axis of whoever the non-Five Eyes camp that are out of action, which now means that it also means, from the viewpoint of forming up a second front, which comes in somewhere around about Syria and the bottom of Russia, becomes a lot more easier than if you're trying to do that and you're actually dealing with, Iran. That's a short-term solution. I think long-term, this is going to come back to bite them in the arse a hell of a lot. And effectively, what America's doing is it's doing two things which I think are wrong. One is it's trying to open up conflicts now on multiple fronts that it can't actually pull off, and it's also the resources combined with it is the resources that it's actually, America is broke. America is doing these wars out of desperation because it needs other people's resources. So, it's gone and waged a war in Venezuela. It's now waging a war in Iran. It's now basically got problems on the Mexican border, because it is waging a war with Mexico. And again, Sicario it's a TV series, a film, but I think it paints the pictures of Mexico very well, in terms of America has actually basically been fueling the different cartels. And there's never been a drug war. It's been like we found that side. When they get too powerful, then we find the other side. And what it does is it creates an environment of chaos, which means that nobody can actually fulfill that vacuum. And that's become America's go-to strategy, and this also actually includes Libya, since about I'm going to go to the 1990s. It's basically when America stopped paying defaulting countries IMF funds because it couldn't afford to. And it became, well, if we can't actually bribe them, then we'll create chaos in those regions, which means that no one can creep into this vacuum which we've created. And that's kind of been what America's been doing on the fly, and along the way making itself a bigger mess for it. So here we are. This is where we're at. It'll be interesting. Okay, be interesting how China reacts to this, because China's really not been saying a lot. China's just been sitting back going, I love watching you guys just rip each other apart, waste your resources. This is all good for us. We're just going to keep stockpiling the gold that you're actually digging, and pushing the gold prices up. And Jane Jones is really excited because we're going to get all these mining companies that are digging gold. and he hasn't really actually worked out that in actual fact it actually benefits China. So I don't understand New Zealand. First, on one level they want to be all about national security and have us spending military weapons, and on another level they want to turn around and us actually basically trading with China, because that's basically where this gold actually ends up. Well, yeah. Anyway, that's a little bit of a simplification of the situation, but we have a situation where the world's we nobody ever wanted a new world order with one big powerful person on the throne, but what we have now is a new world disorder where it's actually leading us into chaos. And you're going to start feeling it very shortly. It's going to start hitting you in your petrol price pumps. It's already hitting us in our food pumps. Again, we listen to politicians, and they instead of addressing these issues, they want us arguing over identity politics issues, which are just irrelevant. They're luxuries. Identity politics are middle class people's problems. They're not people, when we actually have trying to actually pay the rent and put food on a table, we have to be a bit more basic in actually what our expectations are. That's my opinion. I'm not trying to diminish anybody's values, I'm not trying to diminish anyone's egos, but I'm just going, look, at the moment we've got bigger fish to fry, so we need to address the issue of how do we put food on people's tables, houses over their heads, create an environment where there's stability, both domestically and internationally. And at the current mode, what we're doing is we are reacting. This is like watching a monster in its death throes. It's thrashing all around, but it's dying. And we can choose to accept this all and step away from it, or we can be embroiled in it. Right now we see France is now actually starting to allow countries to levy land in their country to permit that carry nuclear weapons. So they're building out the stockpile. The tick to the midnight to the clock, the nuclear clock ticks even closer. And nowhere in our media are we having this discussion about what is this? Is this how we go about dealing with conflict resolutions? Someone does what we don't want them to do, so we just immediately go to the bomb them. Again, short version is that at the moment we are going up into not the midterms, but it's a part which are very important just for America to decide who owns the House and the Congress. And Donald Trump probably wasn't going to do very well. And traditionally, this has been a go-to position for American presidents, not just Trump. Many presidents have done this thing where just when they're not doing too well in the polls, they go and bomb somebody, and that either distracts them, or more importantly, if they allow them to escalate. In Donald Trump's situation, I'm sure the scenario which we must also consider is that he will escalate the situation simply to keep himself in office, to avoid himself going to jail. And that's just reality. Again, not about good or bad, but you read the room and go, well, look, this is what do you think is going to happen to him when he gets out of the next group get in power? What do you think they're going to turn around and do? They could at all possibility go after him. I would say that the exception to Donald Trump, if anybody wants to say, well, he's not like the rest, is that you're right, because normally when presidents go up, they all protect each other, and that's the system. And I think Donald Trump sort of crossed some sort of line in the sand. So, if he gets, when elections come around and he gets biffed out, then I think they probably will be going after him, if not beforehand. But at the current moment, they can't, because the House, he controls the House and the Senate, but that could change very, very quickly. And again, this is what I think, Iran is all about. Meanwhile, silver prices, very, very interesting what happening there, because yesterday the silver went up. I'm still into a case of disconnection, because what's telling me on screen is it only went up to 156, but I've got people that buy and saying that they were having to pay 205 at one point, and I couldn't get into any of these screens because they wouldn't let they weren't allowing you to be accessed. So I don't know what was going on there. Maybe it's just a poor reception of mine. But short version is, we can expect to see gold and silver continue to march up. But again, what we're also starting to see is we're starting to see a separation in reality in terms of when it comes to buying gold or silver off a dealer, the price that they're paying is actually starting to get quite substantially different from the price on the stock market, or the New York's Metal Exchange, or Chicago Metal Exchange. And that's because, again, what the reality of the stock trading is not reality of the actual physicality, and that's what we're starting to see, is what Warren Buffett said. So we're starting to see a divorce in terms of the retail price of actual physicality of silver versus the stock market and speculative price. Anyway, that's my thought process on this particular week, and this is the shipping news number 54. So we've been at this now for 54 months, which is nearly over 2 years on this particular format, and I hope we'll just keep going, because at the end of the day, the radio show does exceptionally well. Not so much the social media and the YouTube, but we're still getting people listening to us on the station, and we're still getting people picking up us reading the paper. So we'll be here for all 4 of you people and your dog called Dougal.